1. What is the simple definition of conception according to the sources? Conception simply means getting pregnant. 2. At what point does pregnancy technically begin? Pregnancy signals its beginning at the point of fertilization. 3. Where are sperm cells released and where do they travel during copulation? Sperm cells are released into the female genital tract and travel cephalad, towards the head upper tract. 4. What is capacitation and where does it occur? Capacitation occurs in the uterus, upper female genital tract, to prepare sperm cells for the penetration of the zona pellucida of the secondary oocyte. 5. In which specific part of the fallopian tube does the sperm meet the secondary oocyte? The meeting occurs in the ampulla of the fallopian tube. 6. What is the first layer of the secondary oocyte that sperm cells must penetrate? The sperm cells first penetrate the corona radiata. 7. What happens as soon as a sperm cell reaches the zona pellucida? The sperm undergoes an acrosome reaction, its cytoplasm merges with the oocyte, and its nuclear material is released into the oocyte. 8. What mechanism prevents multiple sperm from fertilizing a single egg? After the acrosome reaction, other sperm cells are inhibited from penetrating the cytoplasm of the oocyte. 9. What is formed when the secondary oocyte completes its second meiotic division? It forms the female pronucleus in the second polar body, the latter of which is extruded. 10. How many chromosomes are contained in the male and female pronuclei respectively? Each pronucleus contains 23 chromosomes. 11. What processes are triggered immediately after the fusion of the male and female pronuclei? After fusion, rapid mitosis and replication begin to occur. 12. What does the fertilized ovum become before it begins its journey to the uterus? The fertilized ovum becomes a zygote. 13. How long does it take for the zygote to reach the uterus? It takes 4 days for the zygote to reach the uterus. 14. What is the zygote called when it is an 8-cell structure? It is known as an 8-cell morula. 15. What differentiation occurs on the 5th day after fertilization? The morula differentiates into a blastocyst. 16. What is zona hatching? Zona hatching is the process where the blastocyst is extruded from the confines of the zona pellucida. 17. Which part of the blastocyst eventually develops into the embryo? The inner cell mass develops into the embryo. 18. Name the 2 layers that make up the outer cell mass of the blastocyst. The outer cell mass consists of the inner cytotrophoblast cells and the outer syncytia trophoblast. 19. How is the blastocyst able to burrow into the endometrial layer? The finger-like projections of the syncytia trophoblast help the blastocyst burrow into the endometrium to complete implantation. 20. Where is the most common site for implantation in the uterus? Implantation usually occurs at the upper posterior wall of the uterus. 21. What is the typical time frame for the start and completion of implantation? Implantation starts on day 6 and is completed on day 10 post-fertilization. 22. What is the role of the corpus luteum in early pregnancy? The corpus luteum continues to secrete progesterone to ensure the pregnancy is maintained. 23. Which hormone is secreted by the syncytia trophoblast cells as early as 8 days after fertilization? The syncytia trophoblast cells begin to secrete BHCG. 24. What is the physiological effect of BHCG on the corpus luteum? BHCG is released into maternal blood to rescue the dying corpus luteum, reviving it so it can continue producing progesterone. 25. When does the placenta typically take over the production of progesterone? The placenta takes over at about 10 weeks post-fertilization, which is 12 weeks gestational age. 26. What is decidualization? Decidualization is the process where endometrial stromal cells differentiate into specialized polygonal decidual cells under the influence of progesterone. 27. What substances are contained within decidual cells to nourish the embryo? They are filled with glycogen, cytokines, and growth factors. 28. Name the 3 parts into which the decidua is divided after implantation. The parts are the decidua basalis, decidua capsularis, and decidua perietalis. 29. Which part of the decidua is located just deep to the implanted embryo? The decidua basalis is located deep to the embryo. 30. Which part of the decidua overlies the implanted embryo? The decidua capsularis overlies the embryo. 31. What is the decidua vera? The decidua vera is formed when the decidua capsularis fuses with the decidua perietalis, occurring around 14-16 weeks gestation. 32. Which component of the decidua is considered the maternal contribution to the placenta? The decidua basalis is the maternal contribution. 33. What is the chorion and how is it formed? The chorion is formed by the fusion of cytotrophoblast cells with the extraembryonic mesoderm. 34. What are the four components of a chorionic villus? A chorionic villus consists of a layer of syncytia trophoblast, cytotrophoblast, extraembryonic mesoderm, and fetal blood vessels. 35. What are the intervillous spaces? These are the spaces in between the villi where maternal blood circulates. 36. Which part of the chorionic villi is considered the fetal contribution to the placenta? The chorionic frondosome, which are the villi abutting the decidua basalis, is the fetal contribution. 37. What happens to the chorionic villi that do not contribute to the placenta? They degenerate and flatten out to become the chorion levy, which fuses with the amnion cavity to form the fetal membranes. 38. Describe the process of vascular remodeling in the uterine spiral arterioles. Extravillous cytotrophoblastic cells invade the spiral arterioles, destroy the intima layer, and line the vessels themselves. 39. How does vascular remodeling change the nature of the spiral arterioles? It converts them from high resistance and low capacitance vessels to high capacity and low resistance vessels. 40. How much maternal blood goes through the placental vessels per minute? Approximately 450-650 ml of blood flows to the placenta per minute. 41. What characterizes the release of blood from maternal spiral arteries into the intervillous spaces? Blood is released in spurts synchronous with the maternal heart. 42. Where is maternal blood directed once it enters the placenta? The blood is directed towards the chorionic plate, which forms the roof of the placenta. 43. How is oxygen and nutrient transfer achieved in the uteroplacental circulation? As maternal blood descends from the chorionic plate, it bathes the branched villi within the intervillous space, allowing for transfer into fetal vessels. 44. How does blood return to the maternal circulation from the intervillous spaces? It returns via spiral veins that open into the intervillous spaces. 45. Which fetal vessels carry deoxygenated blood and waste to the placenta? Umbilical arteries carry deoxygenated blood and waste from the fetus into the villi. 46. How is waste removed from the fetal blood into the maternal blood? Waste is deposited into the maternal blood within the intervillous spaces. 47. Which fetal vessel carries oxygen-rich blood back to the fetus? Oxygen-rich blood returns to the fetus via the umbilical vein. 48. What are the primary respiratory functions of the placenta? The placenta facilitates the transfer of oxygen to the fetus and CO2 to the mother. 49. Which metabolic waste products are excreted by the fetus through the placenta? Urea and creatinine are among the waste products excreted by the fetus. 50. Name 4 hormones produced by the placenta as part of its endocrine function. The placenta produces BHCG, progesterone, estrogen, and human placental lactogen. 1. Discuss the physiological significance of capacitation in the acrosome reaction in the process of human fertilization. Capacitation is a preparatory process that sperm cells undergo within the uterus, upper female genital tract, to enable them to penetrate the zona pellucida of the secondary oocyte. Once a sperm cell successfully reaches the zona pellucida, it undergoes the acrosome reaction, which facilitates the merging of the sperm's cytoplasm with the oocyte and the release of male nuclear material into the egg. Critically, this reaction also triggers a mechanism that inhibits other sperm cells from penetrating the oocyte, preventing polyspermy. 2. Outline the morphological transformation and timeline of the conceptus from fertilization to the completion of implantation. Following fertilization in the ampulla, the zygote undergoes rapid mitosis while journeying toward the uterus, reaching it as an 8-cell morula on day 4. On the 5th day, it differentiates into a blastocyst and undergoes zona hatching, where it is extruded from the zona pellucida. Implantation begins on day 6 and is completed by day 10, typically occurring at the upper posterior wall of the uterus. The blastocyst at this stage consists of an inner cell mass, future embryo, and a 2-layered outer cell mass, cytotrophoblast and syncytia trophoblast. 3. Explain the endocrine rescue of the corpus luteum in early pregnancy, including the hormones involved in the eventual shift in production. The corpus luteum initially secretes progesterone but begins to degenerate as time passes. To maintain the pregnancy, syncytia trophoblast cells of the blastocyst begin secreting BHCG as early as 8 days post-fertilization. This BHCG enters the maternal circulation to rescue the dying corpus luteum, reviving it so it can continue producing progesterone. This arrangement continues until approximately 10 weeks post-fertilization, 12 weeks gestational age, at which point the placenta takes over progesterone production. 4. Describe the process of decidualization and the anatomical classification of the decidua following implantation. Decidualization is the progesterone-induced differentiation of endometrial stromal cells into specialized, polygonal decidual cells. These cells are rich in glycogen, cytokines, and growth factors to nourish the embryo. Post-implantation, the decidua is divided into 3 regions: the decidua basalis, deep to the embryo, the decidua capsularis, overlying the embryo, and the decidua parietalis, the remainder of the decidua. 5. Differentiate between the maternal and fetal contributions to the definitive placenta. The placenta is a composite organ. The maternal contribution is derived from the decidua basalis, into which the maternal spiral arteries open. The fetal contribution is the chorionic frondosome, which consists of chorionic villi that abut the decidua basalis. While these villi flourish, the remaining villi, chorion levi, degenerate to form the fetal membranes. 6. Explicate the mechanism and clinical importance of vascular remodeling in the uterine spiral arterioles. Extravillous cytotrophoblastic cells invade the maternal spiral arterioles, destroying the intima layer and replacing it with their own cells. This transformation converts the vessels from a high resistance, low capacitance state to a high capacity, low resistance state. This remodeling is vital as it allows a significant volume of maternal blood, approximately 450-650 ml per minute, to reach the placenta to support fetal development. 7. Describe the dynamics of uteroplacental circulation within the intervillous spaces. Maternal spiral arteries discharge oxygenated, nutrient-rich blood into the intervillous spaces in spurts synchronous with the maternal heartbeat. This blood is propelled toward the chorionic plate, the roof of the placenta. As the blood descends, it bathes the branched chorionic villi, allowing for the exchange of gases and nutrients. The blood then exits back into the maternal system via spiral veins. 8. Detail the arrangement of the feto-placental circulation and the mechanism of waste removal. The umbilical arteries and veins branch through the chorionic plate into the chorionic villi, forming arteriovenous capillary endplates. Deoxygenated blood and metabolic waste, such as urea and creatinine, travel from the fetus via the umbilical arteries into these villi, where waste is deposited into the maternal blood in the intervillous spaces. Conversely, oxygen-rich blood is picked up in the villi and returned to the fetus through the umbilical vein. 9. Summarize the 4 primary functional categories of the placenta with examples of substances involved in each. The placenta serves as a multifunctional organ: respiratory, transfer of oxygen to the fetus and CO2 to the mother; excretory, removal of urea and creatinine; nutritional transport of glucose, lipids, amino acids, and vitamins; endocrine, production of BHCG, progesterone, estrogen, and human placental lactogen. 10. Explain the formation of the decidua vera and its timing during gestation. As the fetus and its surrounding sacs grow, the decidua capsularis, which overlies the embryo, eventually comes into contact with the decidua parietalis, the rest of the uterine lining. These 2 layers fuse together to form the decidua vera. This fusion typically occurs between 14 and 16 weeks of gestation. Image attachment. Large,